Perfect. Well, hello everyone. We are officially live. Graham's going to be joining us shortly, and we're going to be talking about a bunch of different Sens related topics. So we're looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing your comments in chat and respond to them. That's it. That's all we got. End the stream.
Yeah, it's all over. It's done.
Yeah. But no, so for the season, Sens have come out looking strong. Obviously, the second game against Toronto wasn't the best. You could definitely tell that Ottawa was hemmed in a lot, or definitely not the team controlling the pace. But in the other two games, I thought Ottawa definitely controlled the pace. First game against Toronto, there were times where Toronto pushed back quite a lot. Obviously, Forsberg kept the Sens in the game. That was great to see. Again, against the Leafs in game two, did a great job as well. And in game three, obviously Gus coming up huge, letting in the first goal, but then making like almost 30 straight saves, I think, before he finally let in the next one. So goaltending's looking good. And that's all you can ask for to start the season after how last season started goaltending wise.
Yeah, it was pretty pathetic last year, and having really solid defense is key. But having that goalie playing well is so important. And starting off the season without Matt Murray, we were hoping that really he would really have a nice bounce back. And we haven't even seen him yet, and I don't think he's playing on Thursday either. So I would be surprised if they didn't go back to Gus.
That would be nice.
I don't know
I'd
about
like to see
you.
him get a shot.
Yeah, I don't know about you. I just I have way more confidence in him than Forsberg. He just, I mean, I've said on the Twitter account that he's just so much more technically sound and looks comfortable in the net. And he's just so calm. It's awesome. He's like a machine.
No, honestly, Gustafsson has looked extremely calm in net and very confident, which obviously is great to see for a guy his age. I think Forsberg though has been pretty damn good, better than I think I actually expected, to be honest. I personally thought last year Forsberg had some good games, but he didn't finish on a high. I believe of his last few starts, he had a couple losses, so it was like, okay, maybe he's come back down to earth. But he's definitely looked a lot better this season so far, and I think that bodes very well. Having three goalies who can all start on any given night would be huge for this franchise after last year's debacle of, I think, they had like 5 starting goaltenders in one season. So yeah. And Chris, you can definitely get a Go Sens Go, buddy. Thanks for tuning in. Graeme should be joining us shortly, and we'll get his opinion on a bunch of different topics we have lined up, including the Claude Giroux rumors, Eric Branstrom, what's going to happen with him. I'd like to see him on the roster, but I guess we kind of have to see where the coaching and management decides that Branstrom will play. So that's kind of the biggest thing. But yeah,
I think this whole Branstrom thing's really it just really pisses me off, and I'm looking forward to talking to Graeme about it, because it's such an interesting saga. He was the proudest day of Pierre Dorian's career, so.
And at the time, widely considered the best defenseman outside the NHL, just like another Sens prospect. Know who I'm talking about?
Oh, damn.
Tyler Clevin, of course.
Yeah, that's who I.
Actually, Tyler Clevin's looked decent, so I can't even make that joke. It'd more be like Chandler Romeo or something.
I was gonna say Chandler Romeo too. And it'll suck when we get him on the podcast and he's like, so.
I know what you said about
live stream.
Yeah,
I watched the live stream.
He'll ask for an in-person meetup, and then he'll just hip check us into the CTC or something.
Yeah, seriously.
And then Melnick will ask us to pay for the damages. We don't need that on our record.
Oh man! Did you hear they covered up Clark MacArthur after a couple of years? Yeah, they did.
Not Clarky. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Sorry, I keep checking to see if Graham's message, but he knows he can join anytime after 8, so he'll be here shortly. Don't you worry, folks.
Yeah.
The people didn't come to see us. We're just
kind of here.
We're just pawns. No, I get it. I mean, speaking about Sens, it's interesting that Stützle is going to be starting on the third line in Thursday's game against the
Yes,
Sharks.
I had a couple tweets about that today off our official Twitter account, Centennial. And I mean, frankly, he's probably been one of our best forwards that has not scored.
Yeah,
His ability
Matt,
is
I'm actually going to interrupt you because
yeah,
Graham is
that's
joining now. So I'm going to throw
okay.
Graham into the chat. We're going to get them all up to date here with what we're talking about. Hey, Graham, welcome to the chat.
What's going on, guys? Matt and Matt.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
double Mats. We were just talking about Stützle starting on the third line for Thursday's game and how interesting that is, considering how he's been one of the most offensively dangerous players that we've seen anyway in the past few games.
That's weird. Not a huge fan, but they love Nick Paul, right? Like that's the
Yeah,
and it's getting to the point that it's almost like Tom Pyatt love. Like I love Nick Paul, but like I don't want him seeing him like taking away opportunities from our young guys, especially when he can. He's a perfect like bottom six forward. So.
Yep, no, definitely. And I don't know, Nick Paul playing up the lineup, like I understand they had a really good game against Dallas, that Paul Pinto Brown line, for sure. But I don't know, when you get a guy like Kachuk back in the lineup and you have Stützle there, I feel like putting him on the third line with Tierney and Formanton. And Formanton's been good like through preseason, and he had a rough game in the first three in the regular season, but I don't know. I feel like throwing him on that third line is a little, I don't know, fishy for me, for a guy who's looked like he's gonna score on half the plays that he brings in the offensive zone. So, but I'll give you a better welcome, Graham, because that was awful. So, everybody watching, got Graham Nichols joining us.
Are we live right now?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Actually.
Nice.
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you?
I had no idea. I had no idea.
Yeah. So we are, and anyway, yeah. Graham is the big man behind the scenes at the blog Rome in a Day, and I believe now it's a podcast as well. So
Sometimes, yeah, part time.
part-time.
And
Cool.
Graham, I saw you were playing golf today. What'd you shoot?
Front nine wasn't good. Back nine was way better. Had a bunch of pars on the back nine, but yeah, it was a struggle. Haven't played that consistently this summer.
I wanted to say if you're ever looking for a golf buddy, I do love golf.
Sweet. I'll definitely consider that for the next round, man. We're running out of time, but yeah, I'll definitely take you up on that at some point for sure.
Well, there's no winter golf courses. Come on.
There's like simulators which are cool. Putting on those is terrible.
Noted. Well, okay, let's kick it off with the Brady Tkachuk contract. So Brady Tkachuk signs for a little bit over $8.2 million for the next 7 years. And there's a lot of people who are like, oh, this is an overpay, and other people who said, this is what we need to get to retain a player of Brady Tkachuk's caliber, both in skill and just what he offers in terms of leadership and what he means to the guys in the locker room. So I kind of wanted to start off with that and what your thoughts were on the Brady Tkachuk contract. Oh, Graham, you're muted. Oh no.
I think it might be like you pressed mute. Like the app says you're muted.
Yeah, I think it's actually within StreamYard itself that you muted. Should be at the bottom middle of the screen.
Weird.
There we go.
Weird. No, sorry about that, guys.
No, good.
Difficulties for the older guy on the no, Brady Tkachuk, if a long-term deal had to get done, who cares? Who cares what the terms were? Like, this is more than just like your typical give the guy a bunch of cash and have him sign. Like, this is such a significant moment for the franchise. Like, they desperately needed to send a signal to his fan base that they're committed to this young core and that they can keep this young core through its prime, buying up some of those prime free agent, like first couple of years of free agency for Brady Tkachuk. Because I think Brady Tkachuk entered the league at 18 years old. He was going to be a free agent at 25. Like, he was going to be a really, really young, unrestricted free agent. And to get him to sign and to get him for those 7 years, yeah, like, you're going to have to pay him. And I think they did. Like, they committed to him. They're giving him a couple of years at 10 million. Like, that's what it was going to take for him not to get signing bonuses. And, you know, the organization has a policy of not rewarding signing bonuses. So for them to go above and beyond and to sign him to that kind of contract, I think it speaks well to the organization. It makes them look great. And they desperately needed some good PR. Let's be honest here. Like, everybody was kind of holding their breaths, expecting a bridge deal to come to fruition, and that never happened. And, you know, I'll be the first to admit, like, I was pleasantly surprised and really excited to see Brady sign up, because I think it sends a message to guys like Stützle, Josh Norris, Shane Pinto, all these, especially like American-born players, right? Like,
yeah,
like, they don't have those Canadian bonds and the Canadian ties to the city. So for a guy like that to step up and sign long-term in the organization, I think that's a huge signal to the fans and to his teammates, and it's awesome. Everybody should be excited about it.
100%. I mean, I was at the home opener, and the crowd when Brady Tkachuk walked onto the platform and started doing, you know, the Frank the Tank Selly and waving to the crowd, it was incredible. And I don't think the videos that were posted on social media really do it justice, because it was electric in there when he came out, even if attendance was only 15,000 people, right? So that was really cool to see. And I think a lot of people are excited that he decided to stay with the team long term rather than a bridge deal, obviously, like was highly speculated. So that was really great. So,
and it's kind of cool. Just sort of finishing that up is that you know, it's a restricted free agent that has quite a bit of hockey left to play. It wasn't, you know, a 28-year-old Erik Karlsson. It wasn't one of your aging core pieces that, you know, could possibly be on the way out. And I mean, getting Brady signed and getting Batherson signed, and even going back and looking at getting Shabbat signed, like, those are three very crucial signings.
Why are you leaving out Colin White, man?
Yeah, I mean, like,
yo, I got the Colin White jersey back
here. I probably wouldn't have said that. Like, that's, I just wish that he wasn't hurt. So, but you know, having those three signings, and I mean, thinking about it, I guess the Matt Murray contract to an extent, if, you know, they make this big trade, make this big signing for a goaltender who's won 2 Stanley Cups, and, you know, as we know what he did last year. But having those 3 big signings are a really good indication of this is the core that they want to move forward with. This is the core that they want to win with. And obviously, it would be really nice to have either Stone or Zibanejad. Zibanejad has seemingly entered the conversation in the last couple months, but it's really awesome to see. And I think this Josh Norris deal is going to be sort of a walk in the park for them at this point.
Hopefully, I mean,
yeah, that's the hope, right? Like,
yeah,
if you can sign a Batherson deal, you get him undervalued. I think that's a guy who can outproduce. If you can get him to sign to like a 6x6 contract, I think that's a guy who can start outproducing that contract as soon as next year. And, you know, if that sets the benchmark, get him signed, get him done. And, you know, hopefully the Tkachuk contract is kind of a signal to the organization. Hey, the quicker we lock these guys up, the better it'll be for us in the long term. And if Norris is willing to sign an extension 1 year out, start getting on it, get it done. Craig Oster apparently has already reached out to Pierre to start negotiations. So everything sounds really encouraging. And, you know, it's a fun time. You know, they've actually stockpiled a lot of youth. Jake Sanderson's a guy who's going to be playing on the roster at some point this season once his collegiate career is done at UND. And, you know, you got Bernard Docker in the minors as well, and Branstrom in the minors. So there's some exciting pieces that aren't even here yet that we haven't really started talking about. But everything bodes well. And depending on how the Senators season finishes this year, like if they wind up with another, you know, top 10, top 15 pick, like that's not the worst thing in the world for the organization if they miss the postseason one more year. It's kind of like it's a silver lining if the season goes south. So,
especially in a year where this draft is supposed to be pretty deep, and especially on the defensive side, with the Sens having like 6 picks through the first 3 rounds, that's definitely. You're just adding even more prospects that I'm not going to say you don't need, but you don't necessarily totally need, So that's
just not a
awesome.
bad problem to have. That's
Exactly. Yeah, it's perfect. But we'll talk about the first 3 games this season so far. They come out home opener. They win 3-2. Game 2, lose to the Leafs 3-1, but then bounce back the following night and win 3-2 over Dallas. Now, I just want to say that obviously Toronto and Dallas are both playoff caliber teams. Dallas was in the Cup final only 2 years ago. They've still got Radulov, Ben, Sagan, got Heiskanen's back there. I know Klingberg was injured, but they have a very solid team overall. So it was no walk in the park, and the Sens, in my opinion, really dominated the flow of the play in that game. So, 3 games in the season, how have you thought that the Sens have looked so far?
I think there's a lot of positives, and you mentioned a lot of them right there. And they've taken advantage. Dallas played the night before; they took advantage of them. And you can't really complain. The work ethic's been there. The power play looks great. I think it's clicking at like 44%. It's one of the top ones in the league. Like if you told me the Senators would be 2-1-0, and that guys like Pinto, Norris, Batherson, Stützle wouldn't have a 5-on-5 goal yet, I'd be thrilled. And
Kachuk not in the lineup.
Yeah, exactly. And there's just a lot of things. I think if you told that to any fan in this city, they would take that 2-1-0 record. And obviously, like a guy like Austin Matthews wasn't playing in the lineup for Toronto, but I mean, it's still the onus is on the organization to take advantage of that, and they did. And if Batherson's not offside by like a millimeter, that game could have been different too. The second game, so like this team could easily be 3-0 to start the year. And obviously things aren't going to go great the whole season. Or eventually, there's going to be ebbs and flows and everything else. But if they can start building up a little bit of a cushion, and it's only going to help them down the road if they hit one of those bumps in the road. Like if they have actual playoff aspirations for this season, then stockpiling a bunch of points early as teams kind of figure it out. That's great for the organization.
100%. And I just want to quickly interject for anybody asking us questions in the chat, we will get to them. In fact, at least one of the questions that was asked will be brought up as one of the topics. So just hang tight. And if you have any questions, drop them in chat, and we'll get to them as soon as we're done discussing all the big stuff going on right now. So, Graeme, before you hopped on, we were actually talking about the goaltending situation. And I know we touched on Matt Murray a little bit already with his contract, but, in the preseason, he looked pretty calm, cool, collected, steady guy. But Forsberg comes in and plays 2 phenomenal games, despite having, I believe, under a 900 save percentage in that second game. He looked pretty damn good. And, of course, Gustafsson allows the first shot on net, but after that just looks solid the rest of the way. And it's totally different from last season where goaltending was so inconsistent, and out of nowhere now we have 3 goalies that you could really start on any given day and be comfortable with. So, what are your thoughts on the goaltending?
I thought Anton Forsberg looked great in his first 2 games, and then Philip Gustafsson obviously gives up the early goal against Dallas, but then I thought he played really well for the rest of the game. And it's just the backup goaltending was great last year. You look at Forsberg, you look at Gustafsson, and what they provided down the stretch for the Senators last year. I think that's a large part of the recipe for why the team had success. They got good goaltending. And, I think in looking at their numbers already this year, I think they got like a 94.12% 5-on-5 save percentage. And like, you're going to be competitive. It doesn't matter how much talent you have on the ice. You're going to have a lot of success if that's the kind of goaltending that you're getting. And by all measures, it looks like Matt Murray's going to have a chance to start on Thursday against San Jose. And, it's kind of a good position for him to come into because the team's playing well in front of him. The guys around him are having success, and it kind of takes the burden off him to like turn things around. And, I think he's carrying a little bit of momentum into the season just based off his play down the stretch. And in the preseason, he looked fine. A bad last game where he didn't really play necessarily that bad, but for whatever reason, like the luck just wasn't going his way, and it kind of sunk his numbers a little bit. But it's kind of good. It's great actually to have a guy like Gustafsson kind of waiting in the wings if things do go south with Matt Murray. And he's stepped in. He looks confident. He looks poised, and he's just a young kid. And to have that kind of depth who's available, ready to go, I think it's great for the organization. It takes a lot of pressure off Matt Murray, and I think that's what the organization wants.
Yeah, and I feel like so far, sorry, Matt, I'll let you jump in, but I think so far there's definitely been no pressure for Murray to hurry back. I think, if the Sens were off 0-3 here and Forsberg Gustafsson had absolutely bombed their games, the organization would be like, all right, like Murray, if you're even 80%, like, can you start for us? So I think that not having that pressure is good. Like, let him take the time he needs to get healthy, and I think that's huge.
And talking more about the goaltending, it's nice to have healthy competition. I think Matt Murray flourished in Pittsburgh when he had that healthy competition. He was fighting Fleury for that job, that starter job forever, and that's when he was playing his best hockey. Now he's got Anton Forsberg is his backup, who outperformed him in the first couple of games. And then Gustafsson has, given the team points in 7 of the 8 games he's played in the NHL. Gustafsson continues to grow his save percentage at the NHL level, and he's a beast. He watches the play like come together and knows what's going to be happening. And he bounced back from the first shot on goal being a goal, and that speaks a lot to like his mental capacity, I think. So, and one of the questions actually for Graeme was, why do you think the industry isn't very high on Gustafsson as a goalie of the future?
I'll throw that up on the screen there.
I just think, for me, I think he's just a guy who's been around the league. Well, I shouldn't say the league, but like he's been in the system for a while, right? Like even though he is like fairly young, he has been with the organization for a few years. And I think part of it kind of stems from the fact that Joy Decord kind of passed him quickly on the depth chart for a little while, and he had that cup of coffee. And then if Decord doesn't get injured, we're probably not even talking about Philip Gustafsson, and that's just you can't control the circumstances and everything else. And Decord's injury created an opportunity, and Gustafsson's taken advantage of it. And, it's not like he doesn't have pedigree or anything else. Like he was a 2nd-round pick who was the top goaltender at the World Juniors 1 year for Sweden. So he has pedigree, he has youth. And, you listen to some executives around the league talk about, playing in the AHL as a goaltender versus coming to the NHL. And they say it's easier sometimes just because the NHL game is a little bit more predictable. The defense is a little bit tighter. You can predict things a little bit easier. Whereas in the AHL, it's a little bit squirrely and guys blow coverage and everything else. And it can make things a lot more difficult on goaltenders. And I think if you look at Chris Drieger, for example, right, who kind of had a few down years within the Senators organization, he gets a chance to go elsewhere and he's a capable guy and he's having the opportunity to play for Seattle right now. And I think that kind of borrows from that point, right? Like, he just needed an opportunity, and he's playing very well at the NHL level, and hopefully it continues.
Yeah, and what I love that he said too was he said, he feels confident that he can play at this level, and I think that's huge for a young goalie to have that, And I think what the Sens are doing is kind of good too, because obviously Forsberg has this year on his contract, and he could potentially be flipped at the deadline if Gustafsson really outplays him or just is shining and you can't keep him as the 3rd goalie, right? So, next year he's definitely going to be in a backup role. And I mean, if he's already confident, that's good. And I think not putting him in the position that Carter Hart's in, where it's like, okay, you're our starter. We don't have like a backup to really bail you out. And then him just getting eaten alive after his first season.
You're just dragging Martin Jones.
Yeah.
He deserves to be dragged.
No, man. No, Ottawa owes a lot to Martin Jones. You don't talk ill of Martin Jones.
But yeah, anyway, so really excited for Gus. So we're going to go to the rumor mill because everyone was talking this up as the weekend got underway. Claude Giroux. Now, he's been off to a hot start with the Flyers. I believe he has 2 goals in 2 games. He's looked great. And, people are saying that he would only want to be traded to Ottawa. So I know you wrote a piece on this that I read, and, you went into his analytics and stuff. And do you think Claude Giroux, if not in a trade this year, might be a good player for Ottawa to target going into free agency next summer?
I just think obviously he's got the track record. He has, he's wearing the C in Philadelphia. There's a lot to like about Claude Giroux. He's going to be a 34-year-old player next year when he hits unrestricted free agency. And, You know, is there a fit in Ottawa? I think if you look down the middle, I think you can pencil in Shane Pinto. I think you can pencil in Josh Norris. Those guys are the top two centers. I think Colin White is the candidate for a buyout this offseason. That's no fault of his own. Terrible circumstances. That's kind of like railroaded his season. But yeah, like I think there is an opportunity for him to kind of fit in at center. I know there's a lot of emphasis placed on, well, who's the first line center, who's the second line center. But I think if you add depth down the middle, it doesn't really matter who's the first, second, or third line guy, especially if they're all of a similar ilk. Like, does it really matter? Like, if Shane Pinto is your third line center, I think you got a pretty hell of a good team.
100%.
And, you know, and there is the flexibility there. Sure is a guy who can also play the wing, and he has played a lot of the wing in the last few years. So, is there a fit left wing and center to the deeper positions on Ottawa's team? But I think there's an opportunity if the talent's there that he's a guy who can make this team better. And I think he provides a lot of the intangibles that this team's looking for. And is it a fit? I hope so. You know, given some of the alternatives we've seen through free agency and trades over the years, like I think Ottawa's always added like expensive bottom six guys. And if there's a chance to add more of a top six guy who's had success in this league before and played on some pretty good teams, I think why not?
And I also especially think too, like if you add a player of Giroux's caliber, you know, you could have a second line that, you know, if he plays on the wing, having a second line of like Stützle, Pinto, Giroux would be incredible. I think just, I don't know, as long as the chemistry works out, I think that line would be fire. So it's definitely fun to think about.
And the issue is going to be like, are you comfortable having guys play their offside? And earlier you spoke about Alex Formenton having to move over to the right side to play on the third line with Stützle and Tierney. But I think there's just so much depth on that left side with Tkachuk, Stützle, Paul, Formenton. You know, if you added a Giroux to the mix, like someone eventually is going to have to move somewhere else. And it's a good problem to have if there's a lot of talent in the lineup. But, you know, if the Senators are going to go about adding Giroux, I think the only risk to it is that you don't want to wind up with a Patrick Marleau situation like the Leafs had in Toronto, right? You don't want to overpay. It's going to be a little bit different because Giroux is younger. He's going to be 34, whereas like Marleau was 38 when he signed in Toronto and signed a 3-year, $18 million deal, right? So as long as the Senators can kind of navigate the cap and ensure that they're not paying them a lot of money on the back end of that deal, if they ever had to get out of it, then that's something they could possibly look at.
Yeah. Just a reminder, anybody asking questions, we will get to them. Some of them we'll touch on as we talk because they're relevant to the conversation. So throw them in there. We will get to them.
And, you know, adding to the Claude Giroux point, it's one of those things where, you know, do you sort of go for it if you're in the hunt for a playoff spot? I mean, Montreal's down 4-0 right now. And, you know, I mean, it's early to sort of look into their season, but at the same time, they haven't looked good at all. So, you know, if Ottawa's able to sort of squeak in a wild card spot and it looks like that, is he sort of a late season addition, or are you going out in free agency and going for him? And then that, you know, stems the conversation of like, why are you paying for an older forward when you're going to have to pay Jake Sanderson a buttload of money? You're going to have to pay Stützle a buttload of money and this, that, and the other thing. But then it's the veteran conversation about adding good veterans to the lineup.
I think it all depends on the market and the opportunity cost, right? Like Philadelphia might be in a playoff position of their own, in which case they have no inclination to trade him, and he might not want to leave. Like, you know, I think Al Morganti was the reporter from Philadelphia who first mentioned it, saying that, you know, I think there's a chance that if he had to waive, Ottawa would be a team that he would consider because that's where he lives. That's his offseason home. And that makes sense. But that could be just a situation where, if he had to leave, that's where he would go. But maybe he just doesn't want to leave at all. We don't know what his aspirations are outside of playing for Philadelphia. So if Philadelphia's in the hunt, I don't see them doing anything. And then if they are out of the hunt and Ottawa's chasing a spot, maybe it makes sense, but it all depends on the opportunity cost. Maybe that's a move that Ottawa is more comfortable making in the offseason when he's a free agent. They don't have to give up an asset or two to get him.
For sure. And I think also if there's any indication by Giroux's agent that he'd want to sign in Ottawa, and they tell that to Philadelphia's management, then they might, even Ottawa gives up, like, let's say a late pick to get negotiating rights prior to free agency opening up. That might be nice. I wouldn't be opposed to something like that. But another player who there's kind of always rumors circulating around, and, you know, you hate to see it because I think he deserves more of an opportunity with the team, is Erik Branstrom.
Not Logan Brown.
Yeah, finally.
Not anymore. Not
Logan Brown. But Erik Branstrom. So He was sent down, but that's really because Ottawa needed to recall another goalie to replace Murray, and really Branstrom just had the most movable contract. They wanted Parker Kelly in the lineup, not Scott Sabrin, so it was just easier to send Branstrom down. So they send Branstrom down. Now I believe it was Sylvain Saint Laurent who wrote an article that came out today that Branstrom's actually in high spirits. Branstrom seems to know that he was sent down because of his contract situation and not because of his play. So he's pretty confident he's going to get into the NHL lineup soon. So, I mean, in general, like, what do you think about the Branstrom situation? Do you think that the Sens need to give this guy a shot? Do you think they should package him in a deal?
It's interesting, right? Because you look at the left side, the team added Nichols and they added Michael Del Zotto in the offseason, 2 vets. Del Zotto got the multi-year deal, obviously. Nick Holden, they moved Dadonov for to clear some salary off the books in the future. But I think that's kind of like the death knell. I think, if you're honestly serious about giving one of your younger prospects the opportunity to play regularly on a team that isn't anticipated to reach the postseason, I think those are realistic expectations for this team. That they might be a bubble. If everything goes right, they might be a bubble playoff contender. But if that's how you're boxing out one of your prospects after the organization played him and Victor Mete down the stretch and they actually had success, I think that's just, I think the writing's on the wall. Elliot Friedman reported today in his 31 Thoughts that, if you read the tea leaves, Brandstrom's down there. He could be a candidate to trade. You look at what Logan Brown didn't really fetch on the trade market after the Senators held on to him for a long time, and it just, his star power just faded considerably as a prospect. I think that's the concern. I think that's the concern where the organization might ask itself, yeah, he could be a talented asset, but if we hold on to him too long and DJ Smith doesn't like him simply because he's not the big physical guy who has a lot of success when the puck's not on his stick, I think, yeah, it makes sense to move him and try and fetch an asset that the actual organization believes in and will give an opportunity to play regularly.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think it was pretty telling when Logan Brown didn't crack the Blues roster, was put on waivers, and nobody claimed him. And,
yeah, I'm surprised that a team like Buffalo wouldn't put it, like, just a team at the bottom of the barrel. It's like you have a first-round pick who hasn't really played consistently, and it's just injuries limiting him. I was kind of shocked that Buffalo didn't try and do something there, or Detroit, or one of those teams that are just, or Arizona even. Like, it just, to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but maybe there's more going on behind the scenes that other organizations know about and the Senators know about that we're just not privy to.
I think Buffalo gonna Buffalo, so that kind of explains that.
Well, they're 2-0 to start, so maybe
they are. Yeah,
I think they're tied with Vancouver right now. So never know. Craig Anderson's there.
Is Andy? Is he in net?
He's playing. He's got the magic touch.
Andy.
But more like going back to the Branstrom point, I think it's important to remember, the infamous quote. This is one of the proudest days of. Can you hear me?
Graeme, you still good?
Matt, I lost my audio, man. I can't hear anything.
Oh no. Okay.
We've been stun seated.
Okay. Here, one sec.
Can you guys hear me at all?
Yeah, we can hear you. Okay. Here, let me
awesome.
Move him from stream, and then I'll send him a new link. And here, let's see.
I had a doozy of a point, everybody, about Branstrom.
You were talking about the proudest day as general manager.
I know.
All right, Graeme.
How about now?
Huh. Oh my God. All right. Well, I sent Graeme a new link, so hopefully he can accept that new link. And I don't know. Hopefully that works for him. And we'll
hopefully
that
that works.
Yeah.
I think we could take a couple questions now and then maybe.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, Liam Nowlin asked, does Pinto's emergence lessen the pressure to target another center? And maybe perhaps it's a...
Graeme said he is able to get back.
All right,
let's try it now.
Yeah, good to go. Sorry.
All right. Okay, so Branstrom.
No, we can throw Liam's question here, sure. You were already starting it, so let's just jump on it.
So, friend of the show, Liam Nowlin says, does Pinto's emergence lessen the pressure to target another center and maybe shift that to a scoring winger?
I, if Colin White was
We
healthy,
still
I'd
have
say
Chris.
no. But
Yeah, we still have Chris Tierney too.
Chris
so.
Tierney, they just bounce pucks off his legs and his shoulders. And the puck just keeps going in. So yeah, maybe Stützle can keep banking pucks off Chris Tierney and everything will be fine. But I think they have depth, and I just don't know if the Senators would be comfortable moving pieces right now. They're kind of in that patient building approach, and I don't think they're in a position where they really want to add a ton of salary either. So unless it's like unless the only thing I could see is that they move a guy like Branstrom for another prospect who just hasn't had success wherever he is right now. And maybe, you trade a problem for a problem, and I could see them doing something like that. But aside from that, I think they're just going to kind of toe the line, be patient, and kind of see how the prospects lead them right now.
The Rangers also have Kravtsov available, and I know his stats don't really, blow you away. I think it's like 4 points in 20 games last year, but he's 21 years old, right wing. He's got upside, kind of untapped potential like Logan Brown, but obviously much younger, much more of like, what do you call it, like a prime prospect age, I don't know. But dude just doesn't want to report to the Rangers AHL affiliate. He's not getting playing time in the NHL. If the Sens needed like a depth forward to bring in case of injuries or what have you, I feel like the asking price can't be too much for a guy who won't play for the Rangers anymore.
It depends though. Like, sometimes it's higher than you think, right? You look at guys like Curtis Lazar, who struggled for years in Ottawa, and Calgary offers a second-round pick to take him off Ottawa's hands, and it's just sometimes you can hold out, you can get lucky, and I just feel like the Rangers, they're kind of in the same position. They can just hold out a little bit, and they're in no hurry to make a move. And I just don't know. Like, if you brought in Kravtsov, obviously something's going to have to shake out because Formanton's playing his offside. Yeah. You could put a natural guy on the right side, but then you've got Formanton playing in a fourth line capacity role. Do you really want to do that? Which one of Ottawa's left wingers do you want to have on the fourth line? I don't think there's a right answer. And I think unless you move like Nick Paul, the third line center, and bump Tierney down to the fourth line, I don't see a lot of good fits right now for the Senators.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
And going back to that center point, Dylan Strome is now on his third game as a healthy scratch in Chicago. The relationship there is clearly like, I don't think there's anything going there. And, I think Branstrom has had way more success at the NHL level than Vitaly Kravtsov has. And if Chicago's looking to maybe make a shift, you get a capable, top 9 center with high potential. And he just gets a change of scenery. Obviously, I've been barking up this whole Dylan Strome tree for like 3 years now, but it's maybe something that if the market, or like if there was an offer there, I don't see Dorion turning it down.
Well, he has said that he's constantly working those phones, so
that guy is like a quote machine. Every time he goes to a microphone, they're like, we're going to get something good from him today.
Well, they all are. Every single one of them are. Like, it's a
little fist bump thing.
Oh, well, I'm looking at you guys. I saw the Pierre Square, like, fist bumping. I'm waiting for you guys to do the same thing on the top of my screen.
Hold on.
I think it has to be this way. There you go.
There we go.
Yeah.
Nice.
Solid.
There it is.
I think they're so meme worthy, and I really appreciate that because, how dark was that timeline for so long that it was just getting really difficult. And then you saw all of these like new memes starting to prop up, and like obviously my favorite was when Dorion threw like a sweet cream cold brew at the wall. And it's just like, it's good vibes straight ahead. And you simply love to see it.
Especially now that Tkachuk signed. I think, God, Twitter was a nightmare before he signed. So it's nice that he's locked up long term now.
And Graeme, did you tweet out yesterday, like checks into Twitter, see there's attendance discourse, logs out of Twitter?
Oh, it's horrendous. It's the worst. And then it just turns into like, you guys are bad fans.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, there's context to everything. And it's just like, this isn't like an overnight phenomenon. This is like the erosion of confidence and good faith from the fan base. Like, this has taken like 10 years to like manifest. And like I don't know. There's a lot of like gatekeeping. There's a lot of fan gatekeeping going on right now on social media, and it's so toxic, and it's just like the thing that pisses me off is like regardless of like if you're a negative fan or a cynical fan, a critical fan, or an eternal optimist, support the team unconditionally. Like, who cares? You're all a fan. No one's better than the other, and it's just like I'm just sick of seeing people call out other people for not supporting the team as they would. And it's so pretentious, and it's so over the top, and it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. And you see it like almost every day now. And it's just, I don't know. I don't know if it's just one of those things where fans, they're just support the team unconditionally and they need someone to blame. So they blame other fans, or just, they don't appreciate the team on the same level that these people believe they do. I don't know. And it's just, we're all fans. We all support the team. Apathy hasn't set in for a lot of us. So who cares how people choose to spend their dollars or choose how to support this team in their own way? It's just, it drives me nuts.
Especially when they use that argument like, oh, the NHL will move the Sens. I'm like, you know what? If they didn't move the Arizona Coyotes when they were going through extreme financial difficulties, I'm pretty sure the Ottawa Senators are all right.
And I remember when I was doing my sport business management diploma, we had like executives saying that it's not something that the NHL ever wants to do. Atlanta was like a very much like they had no other options. And whereas the Senators, they still have fans coming out. I mean, think about Pittsburgh when right before they got Crosby, they were like, it was a nightmare there. And there were considerations of moving it, but they didn't. And they'll do anything they possibly can to ensure that the move does not happen. And I can't see that happening in a Canadian city ever.
No. And I think there's a little bit of like disillusion in terms of like, if Eugene decides he wants to relocate this team, do you think the NHL is just going to allow him to pick up this team and move it somewhere else and allow him to continue to own this team? Like,
they'll be like, hey, I hear that town called LeBreton Flats is open.
Well, like, I think the NHL knows what's up. I think everybody kind of knows what's up. I think everyone kind of understands, at least outsiders. I think they kind of understand and empathize with the issues going on in Ottawa. I think it's just, for whatever reason in Ottawa, there's a lot of like fear mongering in terms of, well, if we don't support this team, then they're totally going to leave. And it's like, I think there's a lot of context and a lot of explanation, many explanations for why things are the way they are. And, I think they could build this back up. I think, like if Eugene Melnyk is going to stick around for the long term, and we talked about this last time I was on your show, if he's sticking around, I totally think this organization can have success with Eugene Melnyk as the owner. I just think they have to do a better job in messaging and communicating with their fan base. I don't think it serves anyone's interest if the owner goes on Toronto radio and says, hey, we're going to go get a first-line center this offseason and a top four defenseman, and then nothing ever comes to fruition, and the team is below the cap until the last day, until the first day of the regular season. And then you're kind of like, well, there's a disconnect here. What's going on? And then you're kind of questioning, well, these guys keep talking about spending money at some undisclosed point in the future, and they keep shifting the goalposts. Like, what's true, what's not true? Like, it would honestly just serve them best if nobody said a word. And, Pierre McGuire is supposed to be the mouthpiece for this organization. At least that was one of the reasons why he was brought in. But I haven't heard him talk at all in the last 2 weeks. So it's interesting. I think, there's a lot that the organization can be proud of, and I think you could sell a rebuild. I think you do a lot of things properly, but I think what rubs a lot of people the wrong way and creates distrust is just the mixed messaging and these promises, these lavish promises, and it's just the goalposts keep shifting. And I think as long as the messaging gets corrected and the organization does lock up its young pieces, I think people will come back. It's just, you got to tighten up the messaging, and it hasn't happened at this point. And that's all we can ask for if Melnyk's staying in the picture.
Right. And I also think it is the little things. We were just talking before you came on that like they just covered up a Clark MacArthur mural. They did. It's like little things like that where they hadn't changed all of the player things along Sens Lane near Palladium or whatever, and like showing that you are dedicated to the location and the fan base is going to go miles, because like for a lot of people that relationship is irreparable, especially after, I can move this team whenever I want, like calling Ian Mendez Bush League, kicking Brent Wallace off of an airplane, stuff like that.
In flight. No, I'm just
kidding. He had a parachute out, I think if you repair your relationship with the media in Ottawa, it'll go a long way. But until that happens, I think there's still going to be a lot of disillusionment.
Yeah, I think. Well, the media is its own animal, right?
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things, right? It's a one-horse town, and I think in the past, where the organization's kind of gone wrong in the past few years, is to kind of treat it like it's a one-horse town, and it's going to hold their reporters accountable if they don't believe in the content, right? And it kind of all stems back to Melnick's rant at the Outdoor Classic, and everything since it's just kind of been a little more sour. And I think everybody understands who and what writes what, and you can definitely see a total tone change in how the organization treats certain media members versus the others, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, on that so let's talk about season expectations. Now, on our latest podcast episode, other Matt and Bennett had the Sens finishing bottom 10 again, and I said optimistically I could see them in the hunt for a bubble wildcard position, but being more realistic, and I did preface it with if Tkachuk hadn't signed.
I also did too.
That's fair, yeah. I think Bennett was just the hard bottom 10 baby, but but I said, if Tkachuk hadn't signed, I could realistically see the Sens finishing in the bottom 15 again, picking up a same kind of draft position, well, like a similar draft position to where they picked this past draft, and go from there, and next season really have that like this year will be a very solid development year, and next year like have it as a like, okay, this is the go year where we're making the playoffs. Like that is 100% where we want to be. So for yourself, where do you see the Sens ending up at the end of the season?
I think it really depends on the goaltending. I know that's a bit of a cop-out, but I think it depends on how much rope you give Matt Murray if he struggles. And I know that's kind of like an open-ended answer because you don't really know how he's going to respond. But, I mean, if he gives them league average goaltending, I think they'd be happy with that. But if it's anything short of that, I think and they give him a ton of games. If they keep thinking, like, this is the guy, we give him a 3-year deal for big money. And if they just keep trotting him out there thinking he's going to fix himself and he keeps struggling, then I think that's a huge issue. But if they don't, like if they refuse to play him, or if he plays well and the backup goaltending stands up well, I think they've got a shot. Obviously, everything's kind of predicated on the blue line and goaltending. And like Del Zotto and Zaitsev, how many minutes are they going to log? Are they going to be big minute guys? And like Josh Holden, Nick Holden and Josh Brown have played relatively well as a third pairing, and I've been more impressed with Holden than probably anybody else on the blue line through the first 3 games.
Oh yeah,
and he's given me more than I thought the organization would get. But like Thomas Chabot and Artem Zub, 37.5 Corsi through the first 3, and that's going to change. That's going to trend up at some point. So I think there's reasons for optimism. I realistically, I still see them finishing as a bottom 15 team. I just don't think there's enough depth to sustain a lot of success. But it's so easy to get excited about the young kids. Like you watch like Shane Pinto in his first 3 games, he looks excellent. You watch Tim Stützle, it looks like he's taken a huge step from last season. Like last season, he looked like a defensive liability who's just, the offense just wasn't there. And until towards the end of the season. But now, he's probably the most dynamic forward on the Senators so far. And
doesn't look too bad defensively.
No, he looks totally confident and everything else. And and then you look at Norris, Batherson, Brady Tkachuk's going to be around long term, and it's easy. It's really easy to get excited. And I think if a lot of these kids take marked steps forward in their growth and development, playoff spot doesn't seem out of the picture as long as they get a good goaltending and their defense kind of just holds the line until guys like Jake Sanderson arrive.
And I think that's my biggest question mark on the season is probably the defensive core. And I really hope that Sanderson comes in and is like immediately a top 4 defenseman. Like that would be huge for the team
He might not have a
because
choice.
yeah, well, and that's the thing, right? Like, I honestly think Holden really fits into a top 4 position. I think he's just very calm. He's not pressured. He went deep in the playoffs with Vegas. Like, he's played some very high pressure hockey, and I think he'd be a perfect partner for Sanderson to mentor him as he's just coming into the league. And then on your bottom pairing, I don't know, maybe Lassie Thompson or JBD will be ready to step into the NHL after they get a bunch of time in the AHL, and hopefully Branstrom's one of the guys who's playing in the lineup after the 20 game mark consistently.
And it's too bad because Branstrom, it would have been an excellent pairing, that Branstrom Holden pairing, and it looked really good in preseason, and I thought it was a surefire thing that they would run with that. And I mean, it's really unfortunate that they're not, because Branstrom is that puck mover that can get the puck wherever you need it to go, especially on the power play. And the drop off from Thomas Chabot to now Michael Del Zotto as the second pairing quarterback, that's significant. Whereas going from Thomas Chabot to Eric Branstrom, the offense is there for Eric Branstrom. He can produce at an NHL level. It's just whether he can be competent defensively. And from what we saw in the preseason, he was. And having a guy like Nick Holden do what he does best, as just being a stay-at-home guy that can help out and get the puck out whenever you need it to, that just made sense to me. And you wouldn't have to rush Jake Sanderson into a top 4 defenseman position, but our guy who's going to be here for the next 2 years in Zaitsev, and one of the questions was, does the July 1st signing bonus spell the end for Zaitsev if they can find a partner, or is the team high enough on him that he'll stay? Who knows? It's that signing bonus I didn't really even think about up until I saw it a couple days ago, and that could be interesting.
They've acquired guys with signing bonuses before, though, right? Like they're hesitant to give them out themselves, but they've acquired guys who've had them. And I think DJ Smith just likes Zaitsev too much. I can't see him going anywhere. It's just he loves bigger defensemen who battle and have that kind of effort in one-on-one battles. So, he just loves bigger defensemen. And DJ Smith was kind of that defenseman when he was coming up through the system as well. And, to Victor Mete and Eric Branstrom, like 2 smaller guys that he's kind of hesitant to put in the lineup at the same time. So I just don't know. I don't know if there's ever going to be enough room for those guys moving forward. And I think we're kind of at that stage where like Jake Sanderson's kind of in the wings. We're all waiting for North Dakota's season end. I know it's only like October, but like we're all waiting for that season end so he can sign his ELC and then make his way to Ottawa. But I don't see Mete or Branstrom being long-term fits for Ottawa at all.
Interesting.
Which sucks. Yeah.
I mean, Branstrom to me is like a smaller but more offensively gifted Chris Weidman. Like Chris Weidman in that 2017 run, being on your bottom pairing, he wasn't like a world-class player or anything, but he's exactly who you wanted on your third pairing. Just a guy who could move the puck effectively and just get you those transitions up the ice so that you could be in the offensive end, So...
And I think one of the things, sorry to cut you off, but I think one of the things that kind of hurts the development of those young guys like Branstrom is that you don't have a lot of quality right defensemen on the team. Like you don't have guys who are like legitimate top 4 guys. Like I know, like salary notwithstanding, I think like Nikita Zaitsev would probably best be served if he was playing on the third pairing in a sheltered role. And that's no disrespect from him. I think he adds value in his defensive play away from the puck, but like I think what he does well is totally undermined by what he does with the puck. And that's just the unfortunate reality of his game. And, Josh Brown's not a world beater. Artyom Zub's been a revelation for the Senators, but he's in the second year of his deal. And I think, everybody's kind of holding on high to these hopes that JBD and Lassie Thompson can be NHL players and help this team move the needle forward. But I think if you're looking long-term at that position, like they really need JBD and Lassie Thompson to turn into NHL players. And that's a lot of pressure to put on those 2 young kids.
Oh, for sure. I was just gonna add that be like this kind of goes back to us saying about the 2022 draft. Still, it's not a necessity, but it's nice to be able to add like a player like a right-hand defenseman with some high upside. And this coming draft is supposed to be very deep, especially for defensemen. So that would be a need that I would hope the Sens would address at the coming draft, or in free agency if there's a player who just fits the right mold for the Sens. That would be nice too.
And
yeah. And the Senators have cap space, right? They have a little bit of cap space. They have, if Brady Tkachuk resigns, then all of a sudden people may look at this market and then say, hey, that's a team on the upswing. Like Claude Giroux, for example. Like if he recognizes that this is a team on the upswing and he wants to play in his hometown, then maybe there's other guys around the league that'll look at Ottawa through the same lens and say, hey, that's a team on the upswing. I'd like to be a part of that, and then boost my value on a short-term deal. And then
that's what Del Zotto said. Del Zotto said that Ottawa had the hockey world talking, or something along those lines, prior to signing there, and that's really motivated him.
They did.
I know we can make Del Zotto jokes, but
it was not sure it was about hockey per se. But I mean, the Del Zotto signing is probably the most confusing part of the offseason to me. They touted needing to upgrade that right side and go out and get a right defenseman, and then they went out and got 2 left defensemen. Nick Holden has been awesome. I'm really happy we have him. That trade for Dodonov seems to be looking really good for Ottawa. But then you go out in free agency, and shout outs to Paul on Twitter, who is the insider that, just seemingly knew that Del Zotto was going to sign. But, going and getting Del Zotto makes no sense to me, especially, a guy who just signed in Dallas, like Yanni Hakanpää, was like, he's a 6'6" defenseman, signed for less money, is a right-handed defenseman, and is more effective for what we would need him to be than Del Zotto. Obviously, I can't know that the Sens didn't offer him a deal or something like that, but not getting a right defenseman was really crucial, and it just can be rough sometimes when you're expecting one thing, especially after the Toronto comments from Melnick, and then them just not doing that.
And I thought Nick Holden could play his offside, so I thought they would give him a shot to play his offside, and use Branstrom or Mate a little bit more. But they seem on the blue line, it seems like they're kind of following a similar path to what they did last year, where they're giving a lot of rope to the veteran guys early just to see what they can do. And then once that rope is gone, then you're going to see the other guys get integrated in the lineup and then see what they have to offer. And, unfortunately, guys like Eric Branstrom and Victor Mate are kind of paying the price right now for that. But I mean, like to that point, I mean, Victor Mate hasn't had a strong start to the season either. So,
yeah. I was just going to get to a few of the questions. One of them was from Chris, and he was asking, what are the chances that the Sens win the season series, against either the Leafs or Montreal this year?
Montreal's not a very strong team. like if you remove like Shea Weber and Carey Price from that team,
and Philip Deneau,
they squeaked into the postseason last year. I know they went to the Cup. Yeah, but, I mean, like they squeaked into the postseason last year, went on a huge heater, and then just got it done. Like they ran the table. But that's not a particularly strong team that you just want to tie your horses to. Like they're okay. They're not particularly strong. But for them to lose those players without replacing them with competent NHL players, that's a devastating blow for that team's outlook this season.
Like you lose a top 6 center, top 2 defensemen for them, and a top 5 goalie. And, Jake Allen played really well last year, but other than that, they didn't do a whole hell of a lot to add to what they had. Well, and I mean, if Ottawa had a hotter start last year, we would have been in their position.
I know everybody's talking about Philip Dano being an awesome insulator for Nick Suzuki. Now that Nick Suzuki's kind of struggling out of the gate, and it's just everything's kind of piling on Montreal early, and I'm all here for it.
Hell yeah!
Especially when they lose one of the best defensive centers in the playoffs last year and bring in not defensively responsible Mike Hoffman.
And they give up on their top 3 pick, Kotkaniemi.
Yeah. Although, I mean,
it was a rich contract, absolutely, but at the same time, he had probably some of the most inconsistent playtime of anywhere. he like would get into games and then get out of games for an extended period of time. And he scored goals in the playoffs too. So it just doesn't make sense.
So
still awesome. It's still awesome. I'm all
it's
here
still awesome.
So are we winning the season series then?
Against the Leafs, it might be tired.
Yeah.
But I was kind of underwhelmed with them in the first two games as well. Like, I know Austin Matthews is on the shelf and stuff, but I know they outshot Ottawa and stuff as well, but they're not world beaters by any measure at all, considering the amount of money that they have locked into their guys. And it's just their depth is an issue. I don't know. They seem like one of those teams where it's like they have a lot of talent, and it's just it's a matter of like work ethic. It's a matter of like willingness to pay the price and go to the hard areas when the games get tight. And I think that's kind of always been like the underlying issue in Toronto. They have a lot of guys who are comfortable playing on the perimeter and doing what they need to do. But when you need that one goal, like, do you have the guys to go? Like, they don't have the Brady Tkachuk's or the Brendan Gallagher's where they can go to the front of the net and do what's needed. They're totally comfortable going with skill, and we'll see if it works out for them.
Yeah. Well, the next question is, I think, kind of a joke question, but does Erik Karlsson score a hat trick on Thursday against the Senators?
Nice comment. Nice. I'm gonna say no.
All right, Tommy, you heard it here first.
I'll play it safe.
We're gonna bet on no for that one. I love this one. What is the future for Parker Kelly, and why is it a 30-goal season first liner from Boyan?
I'm kind of surprised he's not in the lineup.
Me too.
I know,
he's the prototypical DJ Smith guy.
But it's like practice lines from today. The fourth line was Sanford, Shaw, and Ennis, right? And Tyler Ennis has had a great start to his season. I'm kind of surprised that he's on the fourth line, to be honest with you.
I kind of like Sanford played some center with the Blues, so I'm kind of surprised they wouldn't try Sanford out at center and put Parker Kelly in at the wing spot. Like, it just, like, why not? Because I think Kelly's looked phenomenal, for a depth player, he's looked pretty serviceable. I know in the first game he had a bunch of really good chances that he just couldn't put home, but he looked
I think they had him down as like 7 scoring chances in game 1. Like, he played really well. He plays an agitating role, and you're right. I feel like he's like the prototypical hardworking fourth line guy that DJ Smith just gravitates towards. But he played really well, and then Sanford's kind of hit and miss. Logan Shaw
plays like 5 minutes a night.
Yeah, he's like the guy who's always there that you don't notice. I mean, he doesn't hurt you, but he's just there.
It's literally, he's like an NPC in a video game. It's just like, who is that guy? and like, they've been teasing Nick Paul playing center, and there's another person that can play center. And I don't see Logan Shaw cutting the mustard, so why bother?
Cutting the mustard.
Well, it's a thing. So we're here. It's frustrating, but I mean, DJ knows what he's doing, and he can do what he feels necessary.
We got another one. We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, which is what is your favorite Sens meme of all time? Other Matt was saying how it was the Pierre Cup throw. I'd have to think about what mine is, but Graeme, be my guest if you have one on the top of your head. Go for it.
I like the big-headed guy from the bench of Philadelphia behind.
Oh my God, it was so huge.
Wait, big-headed guy?
Oh yeah, he's sitting behind Dave Cameron, and
the most disproportionately large head you've ever seen. It's like, crazy.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, okay.
That's my favorite because it was so random, and I was watching the game at Big Rig off Iris. And I was sitting with my friends, and we're just like, the game, I can't even remember what the score was. And then they just panned to the bench, and Dave Cameron, this guy, and I'm like, holy shit, that is a fucking ginormous head. And then I just tweeted, like, did anyone see the size of that guy's head? And then reference, like, he was right behind Dave Cameron. And then it was like Ed Brown on Twitter, like, immediately goes back, grabs a photo of it, and slams it on Twitter. And then it's so funny. And then, like, randomly, like, it's just like, I think I don't know if I have it pinned or not, but like every now and then I get like instant interactions, like constantly, like somebody likes a tweet randomly, and then it gains a little bit of momentum as more people kind of see it. But there've been so many, man. Like, this team has just been an absolute content factory for the past 10. Like, you think of all the weird stuff that's happened and everything else, and it's just like, even like the towel moment, or that someone throws a towel and it lands like perfectly on Erik Karlsson's face, and like, just weird random stuff over the years. And it's just been It's been fun. Like
yeah.
it's, for everything that fans have had to endure, like there's been a lot of like good natured fun moments where it's just, you just can't help but laugh.
The Dylan DeMello stuff that the Sens did when Craig was in charge of their social media content, that stuff was gold. Like him directing
Incredible.
the different short films they did, and the Brady Kachuk when they're I can't remember who he was with. You guys would know. Everyone knows this GIF where Brady Kachuk sitting. I think it was like
it's Max Lajoie.
Max Lajoie says that he told his like girlfriend first, and Brady's like, oh.
Yeah,
I love that. That was hilarious. Brady's just like,
and lastly, like the sicko movement from last year, and it wasn't even like the team didn't do it, but then they just like they embraced it, and it sucks that they're not doing it anymore because I thought it was just one of those things that like they sort of just embraced the identity of it and they just seem to be having a better time after it. But I mean, Graeme, I can literally see it in the background.
Yeah, I got it.
Like it was really good fun. And Chris's
most of the stuff is organic, right? And it just kind of grows out of nowhere.
Absolutely.
And it's fun. It's just like I think like, if this fan base wasn't as strong and as passionate as it has been over the past while, like I think apathy for a lot of people would have set in a lot sooner. I know it has for some people, and they refuse to go to games and stuff now. But for a lot of people, like if it wasn't for this community, like they'd just be done. And it's such a strong group of people, and there's passionate people, and there's new players coming into the game all the time, and it's like guys you never heard of, and then they just start tweeting like all the time. Like it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Like. It's just fun to be a part of and interact with people who are passionate about this hockey team. Another meme though that I really like was the Mika Zibanejad goal against Montreal where he directs the puck into the net with his foot.
And that Chris actually said that was his
slide.
And the Paul McLean GIF.
The Paul McLean slide, it's amazing.
It was perfect. And it's as you said, organic, and it started like that GIF came from Sen's Twitter somewhere. So
Greg has been putting out some pretty funny little skits.
His stuff's excellent, yeah. And it's nice to see guys like that get rewarded with more publicity, and people are catching on to like the quality of work that he does. And it's it goes across the community. Like there's a lot of people who are doing some awesome stuff, like podcasts, blogs, what have you. It's just it's just organic, and then there's a lot of fans, like first generation fans, finally, who are living up to it, and it's fun. It's fun to see it grow, and I think it's only a matter of time before attendance starts tracking up. Everybody becomes re-engaged with the product and everything else. It's gonna be a fun time to be a fan in the next like 2, 3, 4 years.
Totally.
Absolutely.
So I don't want to keep you too much longer, but we got a couple more. This one's probably the more serious of the two. So what are your top 3 player priorities for the Sens during this season?
I think it's growth and development of the young players is probably the most of the utmost importance. I know that's kind of like a wide brush to paint everybody with, but I think for an organization that's banking on the success of its young players who are already playing like prominent roles for the team, and they're already playing quite well in the first part of the season. I think that's the biggest thing, and I think for the most part, I don't think anyone's going to underwhelm. I think everybody's kind of going to live up to the expectations placed upon them. Second one's goaltending. If Matt Murray's not the guy, they can't keep putting him out there. I think, you got Philip Gustafson in the wings. They protected him during the expansion draft. If Matt Murray is not getting the job done, they have to immediately get away from him, because if the rebuild is over, as Pierre Dorian likes to say it is, then you can't put your worst lineup on the ice regularly. And if Matt Murray's not holding up to it and proving that he's an NHL caliber goaltender, then you got to go to someone else. And third, I'm kind of interested in like DJ Smith's coaching habits down the stretch. Like, who's he going to play? Is he going to go with veterans? We talked about the blue line earlier. Is he going to shy away from those guys if they're not getting the job done? I know he's given a lot of rope to those guys early on, but it's kind of similar to the goaltending picture. Like, if those guys aren't holding up to their end of the bargain, whether it's Zaitsev, Brown, Del Zotto, or whatever, like, how long is the rope going to be before you give a guy like Victor Mete or an Eric Branstrom? How long are you going to give those guys an opportunity to play? And hopefully the answer is not long, right? You've had success with those players before. There's some pedigree and some upside with the young guys, and you can't keep trotting out bad veterans if they're not performing well.
Yep. Yeah, totally. Final one that we'll throw at you is what's the funniest moment you ever seen at a Sens game?
Oh man, putting me on the spot.
Well, I can try and think of one. I mean, I've seen one where it's like the kiss cam or whatever, and this dude looks over at the girl and she just like completely rejects him and just kind of is really embarrassed and leaves, and the guy just like looks at the camera, looks at his beer, cheers, and just takes a swig. So that was pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
That's fair. Yeah, I put Ian Mendez last time on the spot, and he hated me for it, so it's totally okay. Don't worry about it.
What was the question? What was the question to Ian?
Yeah, so I told him
it
to come
hard.
up with. Yeah, no, it was on the spot. He didn't know about it, but it was what if you could have one ice cream flavor? Oh my god, one ice cream flavor that was named after a Sens player. What would it be? So I said chocolate ka-chunks. And then he was thinking about it for a while, and I think finally he came to Christoph Sherbert. But
That's not even an ice cream.
I had some people tell me that that's not an ice cream, and it was a DQ,
It's like a frozen dessert.
a disqualified entry. So
no, man, you got to have dairy in there. There's no dairy in there. Like,
no. But anyway, yeah. But yeah, that's all we have for you tonight. Thanks everybody who's watching. Really appreciate it. Thank you to Graeme for coming on. You can follow Graeme at SixSens on Twitter. Like I said earlier, he's got his Rome in a Day blog, so check that out. For us, please subscribe. We're going to do more of these in the future. Really appreciate everyone joining us tonight. And we're also on Twitter at Senstennial, and you can find us there, follow our content. And yeah. So thanks everyone for watching. Graeme, thanks for sticking around for like an hour. Really appreciate that.
got one for you though. Before I leave.
Oh, okay. Oh no.
Paul McLean, doppelganger behind the bench. That was pretty good. Like for the first little bit, you know, it kind of ran its course, but like the first time you see it, where it was just like natural, the guy wasn't dressed up.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Fun stuff. Think I hate to do this, but I'm pretty sure he passed away. I'm pretty sure the doppelganger passed away.
Did he?
You just made it dark, man.
I know, and I had to do it. But like, you know, peace to the Paul McLean doppelganger. To one of the greatest moments of you know, Sens memory. Yeah, I'm really sorry, guys. I didn't mean to do this, but.
Well, we can end on a happy note where, you know, Bobby Ryan, I went to that game where he scored 3 goals and that family had that sign like, if you score 3 goals, like our dad will get us a dog or whatever. And he scored 3 goals and the dad's like,
I thought it was just one goal.
No, it was like if you got a hat trick, then I'm pretty sure because
no, it was a hat trick. I'm pretty sure.
Oh my god.
They beat the Rangers 3-0 too, or something.
And the dad's like, "All right, I've set the It's like those Twitter things, like you get 50,000 retweets, and you can have this, and then they like absolutely eclipse it.
Yeah.
And then Bobby Ryan was like, "Not on my watch. You're getting this dog.
You guys are getting the puppy." Yeah.
Oh,
good stuff. Good stuff.
Actually, lastly, one of my favorite memes was when Bobby Ryan was coming, and he said, "Ottawa, I'm coming in hot."
What's with you and ending on bad notes? What the hell?
I don't think that was a bad note. I thought it was kind of cool. I mean,
the one time I saw Bobby Ryan in Ottawa is when I was working at a retail store, and he walked in with the backwards hat, you know, dark top, jeans, and some flip-flops, and I was like, that totally looks like an outfit that Bobby Ryan would wear on a day off. Oh, man. Anyway. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Like I said, Graeme, thanks for joining us.
No, I appreciate you guys having me. Had a lot of fun talking hockey with you.
Yeah, it's always enjoyable for sure. So thanks so much, everybody, and have a good night.
Go
Sens, go.
See you with the pair of fist bumps.
Come on. Yeah.
Nice. Every episode, you got to end it like that.
Definitely. For sure.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. That was fun.
See you.